So Clemson, again, horrible performance against Georgia. The defense did everything they could until they finally kind of gave way. But the offense was bad. Klubnik was mediocre at best. The offensive line was maybe the only bright spot of that Georgia game. But even then, they didn't run the ball with conviction or really particularly well. But then they bounced back the very next week and utterly dominate App State. Well, maybe App State, a lot of people were saying they're really good. In 2007, they beat Michigan. In 2022, they beat Texas A&M. After their loss to South Alabama, I think it's clear they're not that good, right? So whatever, the safety play by App State wasn't that good. Aaron Murray pointed that out in his review. So I still felt like we saw a lot of progress from Clemson, but I wanted to see it against a ACC opponent. And I'm pretty down on NC State. I was down on them beforehand. I picked Clemson to win 35-14, right? So I was quite high on Clemson, at least relative to NC State. But nonetheless, to burst out to a 28-0 lead and then the rest of the game really be garbage time just affirms everything we saw against App State was real, not just a product of a poor defense. And frankly, I thought Clemson looked even more impressive this week. It was 28-0, then 45-7. The lead eventually got to 59-14 before backups came in, and NC State made some progress. It was 59-35. Honestly, the only criticism I have of Clemson is the defensive backups don't look good, right? Sammy Brown even, I had a friend texting me saying that, he thinks Sammy Brown isn't ready, doesn't look that great. And then at first I was like, that's crazy. I went back and watched the highlights, and a lot of those plays in the second half where NC State's, making moves, you see Sammy Brown getting turned around or lost in the hole in the wrong lane. So just, I thought Kobe McLeod also had some of those problems in the Georgia game. But I think it's generally a lack of depth. And I think it's great that Clemson's blowing these teams out and building that depth. Yes, absolutely. John here mentioning the improved blocking. Blocking is a huge part of that, a part of the progress. And I'm going to start with that actually, because one of the very first plays is a testament to that blocking. So Clemson's first touchdown run was a Cade Klubnik 55-yard touchdown run off a zone read. I assume it was a read and not just a fake handoff. But Klubnik offered the handoff to the running back. He pulls it away, and then he takes. And at the same time, you have two pulling offensive linemen. So left guard Marcus Tate is pulling to the right, and just right before Cade is going to run by, Tate picks up a perfect block, which allows Klubnik to get to the line of scrimmage. Tristan Lee is also pulling, and he's leading the way, and he picks up a block which opens up a hole, allows Klubnik to get about 7 yards upfield. And right at 7 yards upfield, that's where there's two defensive backs who could make a play. 7-yard gain would be fine, but Troy Stellato is the guy who has to make a play. Stellato chooses the right guy to block, hits him square in the chest, blocks him. The other defensive back is screened out of the play and can't do anything because he can't get around Stellato blocking his teammate. And then Klubnik's fast, and Klubnik at that point turns on and just blasts 55 yards, or I guess at that point another 48 more yards to the end zone untouched. And great read by Klubnik and great speed by Klubnik. But that is a true team play, right? You need three different guys to come up with big time blocks, and all three of them do. They just weren't doing that last year. The growth we've seen from Tate and Lee, outstanding. And frankly, Stellato, that's a big time play. The receivers were not blocking well downfield last year. So I don't know that I'd say I've seen them making amazing plays in the outside blocking, right? But we did here, and I'm going to call it out. Amazing play by Stellato, and that's what sets up Clemson to jump all over them right away. John, I pulled this one up earlier, but credit to the wide receivers, right? Got to give them their credit, because that's what makes a 7-yard play a 55-yard play. So then Clemson gets the ball again. They get a stop and get the ball back. Next possession, the blocking is actually not as good. Jake Bringstool misses, or for whatever reason, the defensive end gets right by him, and Klubnik is forced to sprint out, right? So now Klubnik is sprinting out. He's rolling out to the right, pretty much full speed. Antonio Williams sees this and changes his route and cuts upfield to go deeper. And while sprinting out at pretty close to full speed, Klubnik delivers a perfect pass that hits Antonio Williams where no one else could get it. So 31-yard touchdown. Clemson's up 14-0. So that is just, even when there's a mistake, the receivers and the quarterback are so much more in sync. You're seeing a lot. That didn't happen last year. You're seeing a ton of progress that wouldn't have happened against Georgia either. So that's where I think you'd be really encouraged here. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. So Clemson gets another stop. They get the ball back. They drive downfield. They're near the goal line, and they run a play action. Klubnik gets pressure on him right away. I don't know if it was a missed block or part of the play, but he's backpedaling quickly, and he's on his back foot. Despite being off balance, he still throws a perfect ball right to an open Antonio Williams. Antonio, I think, is clearly Clemson's best wide receiver. He looked awesome. He catches it, puts up Clemson 21-0. And then this is where I criticize NC State a little bit. Those running lanes were wide open, and Maffa is deceptively fast. He's a big guy. I'm not so sure that he's any slower than, I don't know that he's any slower than Shipley was. I think he's, maybe not the pass catcher that Shipley was, but I love Maffa. I think I think him getting as many touches as he is. I love Jay Haynes too. I love this wide receiver combo of Maffa and Haynes. I think it's just as good as last year. And his 38-yard touchdown run put Clemson up 28-0, effectively ends the game. Aaron Murray did his review. Again, if you've not watched any Aaron Murray videos, I encourage you to check him out. I've learned a lot from him. I try to watch him before I do anything because he's got some great analysis. He called Klubnik's play tremendous on 95% of his throws. So not perfect, but pretty darn close. And I was really impressed, both live and on watching highlights. Really, really impressed by Klubnik. I saw, especially after the Georgia game, but I've been seeing for a while now, criticism of Garrett Riley, and I just completely disagree with it. I think Garrett Riley's been a great hire, and now you're seeing what he does when he has a quarterback who's not tentative, a quarterback who's not gun shy, a quarterback who will aggressively attack downfield. And that is enabled by an offensive line that's competent and receivers that are actually dangerous, that are actually real threats to get open downfield. And you see these guys get open, and even when there's not a lot of they're not wide open, it's not a huge window. You saw TJ Moore make a great over-the-shoulder catch for 40 yards. Excuse me. And that's what they didn't get last year. So Antonio Williams being healthy, Wesco he had actually -1 yards, but the combination of the threat of Moore and Wesco deep, I think changes the game. And now that's given Klubnik confidence, and you sort of get that ball rolling. So I love Garrett Riley's offense. I think it's creative. I think it takes shots, and now they have the pieces to actually do it. So they're starting to get the ball rolling. I wonder. I'm not saying Clemson would beat Georgia if they played them again now. Not saying that. Despite Georgia looking awful against Kentucky before their open date. Not saying that. But I think it'll be a lot closer to what my original Georgia prediction was, which was 28-21 Georgia. I think Clemson's offense has grown. I think if they got that rematch, they'd be much more competitive. Again, I mentioned the defense, the depth there, not as great as it could have been, but also remember Peter Woods was out. Hopefully he's back against Stanford, but I think most of the damage was really done against backups in that fourth quarter. They allowed 21 points. Other notes, or one other note really, is just Adam Randall had a great game, 69 yards, touchdown. I don't think he's a game breaker, but I think he's a good kid who works really hard and isn't the type of kid who wants to transfer. So I was really happy to see him do well. Evidently, he was playing through some sort of toe injury that requires a screw, so he's going to miss about 3 weeks. I think the depth at receiver is fine. I don't think that's actually a big deal in terms of on-field production, but would really like to see him get back and continue kind of pick up from here where he was, the leading receiver. Hopefully he can not have a big setback and struggle for several weeks after he gets back. So I'll be looking for that because Clemson receivers, and maybe it's receivers in general, have a tendency to get hurt. So you don't want those injuries to start piling up. Right now it's just Randall. Hopefully it stays that way and he can get back before anyone else gets hurt. So I think overall a dominant win for Clemson. If there's any doubt that performance against App State was real, I think those doubts are out the window. I think Clemson fans should be very encouraged. This is not a great conference. Louisville, Pittsburgh, that back-to-back late in the year in November, that's going to be tough. Until then, Clemson has no excuse for losing a game. I think they'll win every game before that, and then we'll talk and we'll see how big that challenge really is. Thanks for watching. And as always, go Tigers. If you enjoyed this video, please help this channel by liking the video, subscribing, and leaving a comment. Also, if you're a pet owner and you live in the upstate, check out our sponsor, Ready Vets. They offer immediate walk-in care when your pet can't wait. They're open 7 days a week till 10 p.m. They're owned by 2 Clemson grads. They're located in Taylor's, just 10 miles from the Woodruff Road shopping district.